Hey, what's going on, everybody, and welcome to another episode of So How'd You Get Here? I'm Angelo.
And I'm Tony.
Welcome to the show. We're excited to bring a special guest to you today, but first I want to take a few seconds and just say thanks to everybody who watches us on YouTube and subscribes on all the platforms.
iTunes, Spotify,
Google Play,
subscribe.
Something else that's probably out there that's neat. Anyway, let's jump right into it because our guest today has a tight schedule to keep because he likes to fly planes. I'll give you a few of his accolades.
He's always working.
He's always working. So a few, you probably don't know his name, but you're going to after today, and you definitely have seen his work. He's worked on, Coming Up, Devotion. He's got some skills that he's showing off in Creed 3, Rebel Moon, Heart of Stone, The Gray Man, which is
out now.
Which is out right now, so we'll put a nice plug in for that. But another small movie that he worked on called Maverick.
Top Gun Maverick.
Top Gun. I'd like to welcome to the show today Mr. KEVIN LAROSA.
Hey guys, it's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, dude, man, thanks for coming.
First of all, thanks for being a paisan, and thank you for being here today. We're going to geek out, or at least I am a little bit, but before we get into any Q&A, do you want to give just little few credits of your own or introduce yourself, tell the audience any movies you want to plug, tell them what you're on or what you can say?
Yeah, of course. First off, let me say this is probably the coolest podcast set I've ever seen.
Thank you.
Seen a lot of them lately. This you guys take the award. Nice job.
Oh, wow. All right.
I'm going to give you that $20, I promise.
Yeah, okay, that's 100 actually.
Oh, sorry, like I said.
Well, if they're giving out awards, we got to find out how to get them.
So I'm an aerial coordinator and motion picture pilot. And what that means generally is when the studios need a aviation asset or a stunt or a airplane or helicopter in a movie, they go to an individual like myself to figure out how to make it and I help them make storyboards into reality. I help bring in the team and bring in the assets or the helicopters or jets or what have you. And sometimes it's as simple as a aerial shot in a commercial and nobody would even think that was a helicopter or a jet or a drone. They wouldn't even know. And sometimes it's like Top Gun Maverick, where it's a year and a half of my life devoted to a film, in that case, just an incredible film.
Yeah.
And I'm heavily involved with the director and the actors and from start to finish. So it's always different. I have two main passions in my life, and that's aviation and filmmaking. And I'm super lucky that I get to put both of them together and call it my job. People pay me to do it. I don't tell them I would do it for free,
right.
But I mean, man. It's pretty.
Well, take us back. How did you get into that? Because I know your dad was a pilot.
Your grandpa was a pilot too.
Yeah. Third generation.
You've
been
pilot.
flying since you were 10, 8?
2.
Longer than I could remember.
Yeah.
So Grandpa was a pilot. He flew in the Air National Guard, so a lot of really cool military aircraft. That inspired my dad to become a pilot. My dad, I think,
did he fly in any wars?
He was Air National Guard, the New Jersey Air National Guard, actually. And then he was lost in a conflict humanitarian effort, lost in an aircraft. Not a lot of info came out there, but that's how he passed. But he did give my dad the aviation bug by giving my dad a ride at 16. My dad actually was just telling me the story. We were at an air show together. And then from then on, my dad got the aviation bug and just followed kind of in his dad's footsteps. Was in the military, but didn't fly in the military, acted as a crew chief. And then when he got out, just was afforded some cool opportunities and got into the movie industry by chance as a stunt pilot and aerial coordinator. So
What was the first thing he worked on?
I guess it was The Incredible Hulk.
Okay. TV show.
TV show.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
Yeah.
With Lou Ferrigno?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
And it was absolutely by chance, which is typically how things happen in the world, right?
Yeah.
But he loved it, and he got to fly his airplane on camera, and then he did a good job, and one producer talked to another producer, and all of a sudden it was his line of work. There's a lot more involved in it. Just
of course.
Took that into one sentence.
We have an hour, but you make it as...
So fast forward to me, I was lucky enough to be born into a family that just kind of, eat, sleep, breathe aviation type thing. I always say I grew up at the airport. They own an aviation company. So my dad had an aviation company, but also did the movie work.
Here in California.
Here in California, Van Nuys, California. So that's where I was born, raised, and lived at an airport. And I travel the world for the movie industry, but it's pretty funny. I haven't gone very far from like my home base, which is kind of cool.
Well, when you're a pilot, you probably don't need to.
It's an airport right there.
That's right.
So growing up as a kid, that's pretty cool. When you go to school and your dad's on movies and movie credits, so you tend to kind of like that. And the guy became my idol and my hero, and I knew from a very young age that that's what I wanted to do.
Were you always comfortable in an aircraft? Like when you're a kid and you get brought up, are you like you're scared shitless?
There are pictures of me as a baby in his warbirds and helicopters. So like I think I just didn't know the difference. Like
Right.
that's what I was used
That was
to.
the norm.
We'd go on
Yeah.
camping trips in an airplane. We'd go get lunch in an airplane or helicopter. So it was normal,
Got it.
which is kind of rare, but
Yeah.
that was it was like driving a car. And there was only one thing that almost pulled me away from my path. I mean, I knew what I wanted to do, but that was the original 1986 Top Gun. I fell in love with that movie. Who didn't?
Yeah.
I wanted to be an F-14 naval aviator. I wanted to be like Tom Cruise.
So you were born in '86. So when did you see the movie?
I don't know. It
Like-
probably was just running in my
Right.
house, like growing up. Same thing as like flying. All of a
Yeah,
sudden, I
yeah.
just knew every word,
Yeah.
and I'm like
Just
8
plays
years
on a
old.
loop in your dad's
Right?
house.
So that was the only thing in my past that I could remember where I was like, Dad, I might want to go fly for the Navy, and he was supportive. He's cool with that,
Yeah.
but stayed the course and just in one way or another, and just a random turn of events. It's so crazy to have been the guy who worked on the new movie.
For the people that are listening and watching that are into aviation or not, like what's the process? Like, so you're 14. I read that you were like logging hours. So you're just going up with your dad or just
Yeah,
Like-
with my dad, he was an
yeah.
instructor. So logging time at 14,
Okay.
I soloed a helicopter and an airplane at 16. I got my license in both fixed wing and rotorcraft at 17. So it's pretty young.
Yeah.
Obviously, dad opening doors and lots of opportunities. And then I think I got my first jet certification at 19. I was a co-pilot in like Learjets, like private jets. So here's an interesting thing, and I love this, and I think this applies to kind of what we're talking about today is when I was 17, I was joining my dad on set, and I was washing aircraft and driving fuel trucks, and I was his ground coordinator, which means I had an air-to-ground radio, and I'd stand next to the camera department or the director and translate what the director wanted to my dad in the sky. So it's pretty young to be on set, but I was getting that what we call set etiquette or
Right.
set experience, which is great. And I knew what I wanted to do. I couldn't wait to get in that aircraft, right? I was foaming at the mouth. I wanted to grow up so fast, and I was just so focused on wanting to be him. And I remember I was 17 and I went somewhere with my dad, and he kind of pulled me aside, wanted to have a serious chat. And our serious chat was about my future, and what he told me was not what a 17-year-old who's already in the industry doing what they want to do wants to hear. And he said, Bud, if you ever want to be what I am, if you ever want to be a aerial coordinator and stunt pilot, I hate to tell you this, but you're going to have to leave the industry, and you're going to have to go do your own thing. Because if you grow up in this industry and you're just a junior, because I am a KEVIN LAROSA junior,
Mm-hmm.
no one's ever going to trust you. And I love him for the foresight to tell me that. I mean, what dad probably doesn't want to have their son working with them every single day? But at some point, my dad probably had a realization, or maybe he knew somebody else in the film industry that was like, you know what? I've seen a junior grow up and they never made it quite as big as their dad, because everyone just said, well, they're just in their dad's shoes, or maybe they
Right.
just got their dad's shadow, right? So bravo to him for telling his son, his buddy, you got to go do your own thing. And I didn't want to hear it at the time, but I took his advice.
What was your own thing though?
So
Because you wanted to be him.
he said, go do every single aviation job you can possibly think of. Go immerse yourself in aviation. Every single bit is going to help you one day if you come back to doing what we want to do. And he said, on your off days, on your vacation days, I'll use you. You come out on movie sets, be my ground guy, ferry aircraft around the country with me. But one day you'll know when you're ready, and that's only up to you.
Yeah.
So I flew traffic watch airplanes in downtown Los Angeles and around the LA area. I flew for KFWB and KNX and something called traffic.com. I flew their Cessnas. So that was really fun. Flying in the busiest general aviation airspace and airline airspace in the country just taught me a lot about that. I flew news helicopters. I flew for Channel 7 and 11. And I flew medical helicopters, like twin engine helicopters for a company called Helinet, who now I'm kind of partnered with today as well. I flew private jets all over North America, South America, all over the U.S. And I was just trying to get everything I possibly could, and in a giant hurry. Like here's a young guy, late teen or early 20s, and
So is that essentially your college
that
years?
was my college.
Yeah.
And he basically said that you're either going to work your ass off or
Yep.
you're going to go to college.
Yep.
And I wanted to fly, and I wanted to do what he did. So I worked my butt off day and night, every hour I can scrape out of an aircraft, every bit of experience. And that was the best thing ever. And probably about 27 years old, I had about 5,000 hours, and I was just too busy.
Is that a lot or a little?
It's decent.
Okay.
It's, it's respectable.
Yeah.
I would say. And I I was getting the movie calls were starting to come in. And my dad had a lot of jobs, and I was running out of vacation days and sick time at my normal real jobs. And I knew one day, I said, you know what? I'm ready. It's time. And I remember quitting my full-time real job, made that leap of faith to become an independent contractor, which is a little scary.
Yeah.
No guaranteed income anymore. And I never looked back. And I wouldn't have been here without him giving me that advice.
So when you were 27 years old and you have all these hours and your dad is now seeing that you put in all this work, 10 years probably, 17 to 27, are you, Dad, why don't we just partner up and start a company together? Or are you just, because you said you became an independent contractor.
Well,
So
that's what he is.
Oh, that's what he is?
Yeah, that's what he is.
So it's not like KEVIN LAROSA and Sons stunt coordinating?
Not necessarily. No, I mean, we were kind of a team, right? But we'd get hired together, or I would back him up on jobs. There's some jobs he wouldn't need me, and there's some jobs I don't need him. It's great when we get to work with each other. I feel like this swap happened somewhere in the last 15, 20 years where I was the guy on the ground helping make him look good or supporting him. Right. And then somewhere later in life, now he's the guy on the ground, or my second that comes in to help me make me look good on set. And we're a team, and we love working together. So that's pretty fun. And I'll tell you, when you have a good relationship with family like that, like, I hate to think that there's a day in my future where I won't get to work with Dad. It's just pretty fun.
And is there going to be a day where you pass that baton off to one of your 3 daughters?
I certainly hope so.
Okay. I didn't know how you feel about your kids flying. I'm assuming you're okay with it if that's what you do for a living.
They fly with me all the time.
Free training with Dad.
Right?
That's awesome.
And it's pretty cool. I always had this dream, like I'd pass the baton off to my son. And I was lucky enough to have 3 beautiful girls. Never had a little boy.
What are their ages?
We have 3, 8, and 10.
Okay.
Yeah. The middle one seems to be most interested. That's Emma. But Ava and Ella, the young one's pretty young. She's just happy to be around, right? But the 2 older ones kind of dig it. And we fly over their schools and their friends' houses. And that's kind of what my dad did, right? So if you kind of mix aviation with just
a little
cool
bit of a
life,
flex for most kids.
Yeah, they like that. I mean, right now I'm super cool. I know when they're teenagers, I'm not going to be cool at all. And it'll be very embarrassing.
Might be a little bit.
I'm going to soak it up right now and be the
For
coolest
sure.
dad I can. I would love for them to do this. And also, I think our industry has a lack of women in aviation. And I would love for them to carry on our name, our brand, our reputation, and our legacy in the aviation business, especially motion picture aviation. So, but my theory on that is I'll never push them in anything. And my dad never pushed me. My dad was almost holding me back. I was foaming at the mouth for it, right? So I'll never push them. I'm only going to open the doors. I'm going to show them how cool it is.
Yeah.
If it's something they want, I will be their biggest supporter.
And are you going to give them the same advice, like, hey, you kind of got to go cut your own teeth first before?
100%. Why change something that worked?
At 27 years old, when you became that independent contractor, do you remember the first job you got?
No, I don't remember
No?
the first job. I remember making the phone call to quit my job. We were actually working on a movie. I was on vacation, basically out of vacation days, but I was working on a movie in Atlanta, and I made the call from the hotel room. I was married at that point, so I called my wife. She's like, "You're crazy, but I trust you."
Yeah.
And kids and a full-time job and a guaranteed thing. And I hung up the phone with the company, and I remember I think I jumped on the bed and probably screamed like out of excitement and fear. Yeah, lots of fear.
Yeah.
But it all played out. Sometimes things work out.
Now, that job, was that with your dad?
I think it was out there on my own at that
Okay.
point. Different job, yeah.
And how many jobs have you worked with your dad and by yourself?
Oh, so many.
So many.
I
Too many to count.
Couldn't
Yeah.
even count.
Yeah.
He's working with me this week. He's going to fly. We got 2 helicopter jobs. He's going to fly the other one.
So when a studio calls you, are they just vetting you like per job, or they just know your resume and be like, well, he already worked. Obviously, Top Gun probably helps you get into more doors.
It's nice on the resume,
yeah,
for sure.
but
It's not a bad thing.
No, but
Well,
before
we saw it and we're like, we'll let him on the show.
yeah, we're like, oh, that's all green screen. but before that, before you have the Top Gun and the Devotion and all those things on your resume, like you just basically just pitching yourself for every job, or they just kind of know the name.
For folks listening that understand
Yeah.
the film business, I feel like it's half word of mouth. So based on your reputation
Yep.
and how good you've done in the past, or people have recommended you, and it's also your skill. So I think based on those 2 things, that gives us work. For people that don't know who I am, there's a vetting stage, or we're competing, or we're putting estimates in and bidding against a competitor. But a lot of times, and I'd say more often than not, you're just the director or producer says, I want him. I want Kevin. I
Right.
trust him. I made 2 movies with him. He always makes us look good. And the most important thing is safety, right?
Yeah.
People's lives kind of depend
Yeah.
on some of the stuff we do on set.
Is aerial stunt coordinating, is that a saturated market? Are there a lot of guys like you out there?
It's very niche.
Okay.
And I have some great competition. I have a healthy respect for my colleagues
Yeah.
and competitors. There's not many of us. I'd say there's maybe 8 to 10 guys that do it, full time in the United States.
Yep.
Maybe there's another 20 in the world. So there's not many. And I think I'm one of the only ones that does jet, helicopter, airplane. I even did drone for a while. So I think I'm probably one that encompasses all the different platforms. But it's a small industry, and there's nothing wrong with competition. I
No,
think
of course not.
competition kind of drives the world in all the industries.
So you sound like a Swiss Army knife of aeronautics or whatever you call it. What is your call sign? Is it Swiss Army knife?
I have a boring call sign, and I actually love it. So I'm affectionately called K2 on set.
And what's the meaning behind K2?
Well, I'm
Kevin
a
Jr.?
junior.
Yeah.
So, on production sets, we both have walkies, and if I'm there with my dad, someone says, "Hey, Kevin," and we both answer the radio, and it's super frustrating. They never know which Kevin was going to call, so it became K1 and K2, and we just kind of left it that way. I think it almost changed on Top Gun Maverick. Some of the ADs, which are great friends of mine and just amazing individuals. One thing I love doing, I love the creativity of what I do, right? You can plan for everything, but you really need to be able to take advantage of moments of opportunity.
Mhm.
You really need to be able to look at a schedule or the assets available and be able to sit there and go, you know what? We should do this. This is better. We should do it this way. And ADs hate that because they make these really cool schedules
They spend
and,
all week making a
and
plan
budgets,
and you wrecked it.
and then I wreck it. So I almost got, I think it was Wild Card. My good friend Robert Kay and Christy Kwan, they're like, you know what? You're a wild card. You really screw with our stuff.
That's how I'm introducing you on this podcast. Your lower thirds are going to come up and it's going to
You're going to try to bring back wild card?
Slash
K2. Okay, cool. So that's
You
it.
can be the artist formerly known as Prince. You can have more than one title
More
when
than
you
one.
work on Top
Yep.
Gun.
The funny thing about call signs, they can be superseded. And typically in aviation, they're superseded when you really screw up. So
The worst part of you sticks to your
Uh-huh,
name.
yeah.
Oh, that
But
sounds,
it's like you're as good as your last landing, right? They're a lot of the Navy call signs, and I love them. There's always the PC version of the Navy call
Yeah.
signs, but then you hang out with the guys, you go to the O Club and have a drink with them, and you really learn the reason why they got that call sign. So I'm assuming one day I may get a new one.
all right. Just keep us up to date.
Yeah,
We'll
I will.
update and keep the newest call
You
sign.
guys will be the first person
Thank
when
you.
I make the
Thank you.
Really appreciate that. Can I launch into a couple nerdy questions I don't know? Because I understand
Bring it.
film side, but
Right.
I've always secretly loved aviation, never done it because I feel if I make enough money someday, then I'll do it because that's what celebrities do. Like Travolta flies, Bill Burr flies. I mean,
Flying's cool.
okay, so
I do it in a way where I use other people's aircraft because I'm not that level.
That's brilliant. That's smart. It's a smart business plan. How
We use other people's buildings.
we do the
Hey,
same
it's the same thing.
You know what I'm talking about.
how long? Not for jets and all the licenses you have. What is a standard process for an average person to go through flight school to be able to fly just a civilian plane with a couple passengers?
Oh, it's such a general question. My easy response to that, it depends on your time and money. So if you can throw all the money at it and devote a lot of energy and time to it, you get it done quick. I know people that have
2
done
years,
it
5 years.
in 3 months to get your private. If you're
Seriously?
going to fly every single day and you're going to take all the tests and get it done, I think you can even do it sooner than that. It all depends on how much bandwidth you can put into it.
And price is 50 grand, 20 grand.
I think it's 50 or 60K to get a private now.
Okay.
It's been a while, and I'm not a flight instructor. It's a
Right.
rating. I need to get it before my kids are ready to learn because I want to teach them, but I never got that rating. But it becomes more expensive when you start putting it off and not doing it consecutively. So for a lot of folks we know, and you guys do a ton of different things, you might have to do little bits here, take a break, do bits here. I feel like that's not a great way to do it because you lose stuff. Things aren't fresh in your head. You really want to just pound it out,
Mhm.
have all that stuff fresh in your head for the test, and just get it done. That's the best way to do it.
right.
It's cheaper that way too.
Did you
Alright.
get your helicopter license first?
For some reason, well, I say for some reason, but I kind of know why. My dad wanted me to get airplane first.
Okay.
I wanted helicopter first, and he pounded it through me. You need to get your airplane first because it's got a bigger foundation of, which is kind of true, the IFR stuff, you're going to do it, and the jet work that I'd do one day. So he wanted me to get the fixed wing thing first and then into helicopter, which is what I did.
Was there an easier test? Did you think learning the helicopter was easier because you did that other one
The
first?
helicopter's harder.
I think the helicopter's different.
Okay.
And I actually like that path. I recommend it to friends that want both. Airplane first, and then add your helicopter on. You can add it on instead of like starting from square one.
Got
If
it.
you're already a fixed wing pilot, you're just doing an additional rating.
And
Got
do you have to do extra additional instrument rating for helicopter that you don't have to in a plane?
You do an instrument rating when you start getting into like the commercial license and getting your instrument rating for an airplane or helicopter, which is so valuable. Like if you're going to be private pilots owning your own aircraft one day, take it all the way through your instrument, because the skill set and the airmanship you're going to get from that
Yeah.
is so useful and safer in my opinion.
Right.
Interesting.
And I'm just going to go down my list because I just
Bring it.
This is the only time I have
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
someone of your expertise to ask these questions. What is the fastest or highest G you've ever pulled personally?
I got to be, they call it the 9G Club, and that was pretty recently. I was afforded that opportunity because of my work with the United States Navy on that little movie we've been talking about. And they basically said, Kev, you did so much for us and you represented us so well. We got a little present for you. So I flew up.
That's a
Yeah.
curse. No
I-
bragging rights on the street.
I flew up to Fallon, Nevada, which is where Top Gun, the real Top Gun, is based. And we did some filming there. And I got to fly in some Navy jets. And I flew in an F-16B model, which is a Navy version of the F-16 Falcon. And I went out with my friend Chris Papiano, call sign Pops, such a cool guy, old commander of Nautic and Top Gun out there. And yeah, I got to be part of the 9G Club. And let me tell you, it doesn't feel great. It's fun. I was fighting to stay awake. I felt like all those guys were like, we're going to make you pass out because you're cool and you were fun to work with. And it's just fun for us to make you pass out and drool on camera with a GoPro or something. Like, I think I feel like there was a mission out there for those guys. I love them for it. But I fought like hell and stayed awake and high-fived at the end.
And a technical question on the actual movie Maverick. When has anyone got to 9.293? I mean, it rips his plane apart in the air in the movie itself.
So from what I've learned,
What's the record?
I don't know what the record is, to be honest.
Because I know he was flirting with it, obviously, in the movie.
I know the structural limit, and I'm sure there's Navy folks who are listening to this. I hope I do it justice. But I was taught on the movie that 7.5 Gs is the accepted structural limit. You can pull past it, and this is a very cool, authentic thing that happens in the movie. And the movie's full of this, is that there's a little paddle on the stick. And if they needed to pull through that to, whatever, evade a missile or avoid the ground or something that's going to kill them, who cares about bending the airplane at that point? Just bend the airplane or break
Live.
the airplane and live, right?
Yeah.
So that's in the movie. We can see that a few times. They pull that little paddle and then pull the stick all the way back. The airplane will go through 7.5 Gs to whatever it'll go to. So that's realistic.
When you got that call to start Top Gun Maverick, like, was it Paramount that called you? Was it like, did you know
Did Tom give you a ring?
Did you know the producers?
It wasn't. Well, I worked on a movie. It was a Jack Reacher 2, I think. I was in Louisiana, I want to say, and I was working on that movie. And I remember walking back to base camp with
As
Tom.
a stunt coordinator?
No.
What were you doing?
Honestly, I was flying a drone on that movie.
Okay.
And I was chasing Tom with that drone. And we were walking back to base camp one day, and I remember him saying, because he knew I was a jet guy at the time. And
Yeah.
I'd been doing jet photography back then as well, different platform. And he goes, Kev, we're going to make this movie one day, and it's all got to be real. It's all got to be perfect and real. There's no other way to do it. No computer generation, no green screen. It'll be real. And that's kind of it for him. But that resonated with me. Like, I never forgot it, because in my heart, I'm like, man, if I could work on Top Gun Maverick, so it stuck with me. And then that was 2014. 2016, I started hearing rumblings of the movie. Like, there were scripts, and we were kind of hearing in the news, there was rumblings of it, right? And I'm like, oh boy, this is coming. And I knew the jet platforms that I was flying, which were really cool, but they were antiquated. 70s technology, 80s technology, and the camera technology was older and limited. And I said, you know what? The only way I'm going to get on this movie is if I build something really cool that is better than anything else, and maybe, just maybe, I'll get called for it. So I made a rendering in 2016 of this jet, and I went through all these different airframes. I was trying to find something that was readily available in the U.S., that was maneuverable. I knew I wanted to do like dogfighting sequences for that movie and fly cameras that had never been flown before. So I came up with this L-39. That's a Czechoslovakian little fighter trainer, and they're imported into the U.S.
Saw that on your site.
Isn't that thing cool looking?
Just for the audience, and also you could read the article. Most of the first one was shot through prisms and special rigging.
Right. Yeah.
And you guys actually, for the first time, put the camera legitimately on the outside.
On the outside.
That could be controlled, correct?
Absolutely correct. Yeah, I mean, one of my idols, Clay Lacey, did the aerial jet photography on the first movie, and that is prisms and going through the pressure vessel of the aircraft, so the image gets degraded when it's going through mirrors. I'm sure people understand that. And we wanted to put the cameras like literally outside, like nothing in between them and the F-18s. So came up with this rendering. I took this shot over, which is the latest and greatest technology of camera gimbals in the world, and I stuck it on the front, and I told my dad and my wife at the time, I'm like, I'm going to build that. Like, that's what I want to build one day. And, you know, I did what I think a lot of smart people do. And you put a team together, people that are smarter than you, more brilliant than you, or have ways or means to make that. Like, I thought of the idea and I knew how I wanted it to be. So I partnered with my friend Randy Howell, who owns the Patriot Jet team. He's got 8 L-39s and they're immaculate and perfect. And we put a business plan together of, you know, I'd fly the airplane and he'd help us create it and do the FA modifications. We went to shot over and said, hey, I want you to take your $500,000 helicopter gimbal and make it capable of going 350 knots in 3Gs. So that was work on their end. They had to put it through wind tunnel testing and everything. And then my other partner, Helen Aviation, who paid for some of the financial support and logistics. And between all of that, we ended up with 2, not 1, but 2 L-39 Cinejets. And they were beautiful and they were awesome. And I still didn't know I was going to get the movie. This is all by chance and really cool people trusting me and me not sleeping at night going, oh my God, what have I done? And I remember I got a call one day. It was a weekend. I think it was a Saturday. I got a call from some of my friends that were already on the movie, and one of the producers, and they said, hey, Kev, we're on Top Gun Maverick and we're going to do this, and you've been doing jet stuff forever, and we know you made the Cinejet. Do you want to do all the jet photography on Top Gun Maverick? And I played it off. I was like, yeah, I mean,
well, let me check my schedule.
It should work. Like, I'd love to work on that. It's great. They said, okay, great. That's awesome. I was like, cool, guys, thanks. Have a good day. And I hung up the phone. I'm pretty sure I woke up all my neighbors within like a 1 mile square radius. Like I screamed to the top of my lungs. I was like, yes, I did it.
Dad's going to be proud of me.
So that was a pivotal moment. I'll never forget that day. It was like goosebumps, hair on the back of your neck. Like when you invest other people's money and people trust you, you come up with a good idea. You don't always know if they're going to stick. And I've had bad ideas that didn't work, but I had a couple good ones, and that one worked.
And then did I read the plane has 2 cameras, one in back, one in front?
I did that for Devotion. So on Devotion, we stuck a hard-mounted camera on the back
for close-ups of the
Sky Raiders and Corsairs. You might be thinking of the other jets. So my friend Jonathan Spano, equally good idea. About halfway through the movie, maybe about a quarter way in, we got a Phenom, which is a business jet that he owns, and he modified that thing to put 2 shot overs on it, one on the front, one on the back. So I got type rated in that aircraft, and we brought that in. And having 2 jet platforms on the movie, like at my disposal, was great, because my counterparts on the movie, which is an aerial director of photography who worked for Claudio Miranda, those are the gentlemen that are actually doing the filming. Like, my job is to put the camera platform in the right spot. I'm in my favorite term, I call myself a meat servo. Like, I literally am just putting the airplane in the right spot, and then these talented gentlemen operate the camera.
So you're piloting and you have 2 people behind you? Or
in the
one?
Phenom, I do. The Phenom, we had 2 camera systems. So 2 different lenses at one time, kind of came back with double the footage. So we had Michael Fitzmaurice and David Knoll. Those are, and Mike's actually a pilot, but those are the guys that are operating the camera. I always say those are the brave souls that ride in the back that can't see where I'm going or what I'm doing. I don't know how they don't get sick. I'd get sick, but I'm ripping through the canyons and they're seeing rocks and trees go by the window, but they're just pinned into their monitors doing what they do the best and making those amazing shots.
Do you have anybody throw up in the plane while you're filming? You got to have at least one story about
that. We definitely made our second unit director sick on a couple occasions, and it's not an easy thing to do. I'm telling you, I'd probably get sick if I sat behind me.
I can't read in the car. And,
I don't really like
while
that
driving,
either.
that gets me sick.
I mean, while I'm flying and looking forward, I never feel it.
That would never bother me. But looking away at anything,
or in a monitor, and what you're seeing doesn't like make sense for what you're feeling is really, really weird.
I saw a couple interviews with Tom, and he was talking about being on set in the jets, and they were teaching like the actors how to, because there was cameras, there was lighting, like they had to figure out how to like the actual actors, like the Glenn Powells and those people had to figure out like to do it while they're in the cockpit. Was that accurate? Was that?
It's so accurate.
Okay.
And I can't give enough credit to the crew and Tom and Paramount and Joe Kaczynski for pushing this, but the cast are the ones who did it every day.
Right.
Glenn Powell and Monica and Tarzan and Jay Ellis and Miles Teller, all these guys, they're in there, and they essentially have to become an extension of Joe Kosinski for directing. Joe gives them beautiful notes. We'd go through 2-hour-long briefings. Joe would give them every single story point note. Then they'd get into a buck, like a fake wooden F-18 that we built, and they would run through their lines with the naval aviator in front of them to figure out where are we going to be in space and time while we're delivering these lines or sequences. They'd rehearse it all on the ground, which is a great way to save money. And then they'd walk out to the jet and they'd go get it and do it. So they'd have to be an extension of Joe. They're their own director at that point, directing the naval pilot of what they need. They have to be an extension of Claudio Miranda, who's obviously the director of photography for that movie. So that means they got to tell their pilots, like, hey, I need the sun at 5 o'clock. I need you in a 20-degree left turn, and I need to check my reflections. Like, they have to become a DP. They have to become their own grips and hair and makeup, and they had a mirror. They'd do their own spritz for sweat. They would straighten their mask. They would do their own sound checks. They're up there by themselves, and they're doing all that stuff. And
at 600 miles an hour.
Exactly.
Do you guys use knots or miles?
Usually knots.
Okay.
I've
never flown. That's obvious.
In the L-39, it's still got like Russian gauges, so they're
Yeah.
clicks. Like I always laugh, like I wouldn't know how to fly an L-39 if it had knots in it. I only know it by clicks.
What's the plane they pilfer from dust off in the movie and have to get in and fly away?
Oh, well, that's the incredible F-14.
F-14.
You know
Just
that?
making sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it called FA-14 or is it just F-14?
I think that one was either an F-14A or an F-14B, based on the nozzles of the exhaust. And I'm not in the Navy, I just got a lot of Navy friends, but such a cool airplane. And such like a tip of the hat to the first one.
Right.
I feel like, Top Gun fans are like, we get Tom Cruise and we get an F-14 again.
Yeah.
And, somewhat believable, because there are today countries that use our old F-14s.
Right.
So we're not like very far-fetched there, right?
Yeah.
And Tom's an F-14 pilot. Of course, he'd be able to get in it and start it up and fly it. So
And land it with no front wheel.
that's impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry if you haven't seen the film. It's been out for a while.
Yeah.
Not our fault.
Yeah.
Spoiler
By the way,
alert.
I don't know anyone who has not seen it.
Yeah.
If you haven't, go see it.
Yeah. Also, speaking of Monica, who you brought up, call sign, I think Phoenix, were your daughters on set? Did they get to meet her? Because, what a cool...
I would love for my daughters to meet Phoenix or Monica. And we haven't had that opportunity yet. But it is true. Like, I mean, my little girls gravitate towards Monica because they see this badass F-18 pilot. And by the way, we had badass female F-18 pilots on the movie. Like, true badass pilots that were flying on the movie and did incredibly. So I feel like I love seeing my girls, and they are most inspired by Monica because I think they look at that and go, that could be me. And I love that.
Well, you brought that up earlier about bringing your girls up, and I'm like, I was curious if they met her.
I need to set that up
soon.
Monica, if you're listening.
Yeah, if you're listening.
We'll send her
Monica, you're going to be our next
Can
guest.
I
Make that
ask,
happen.
if you're allowed to share it, what was a dangerous moment or situation that made you go, oh, that was closer than I wanted to be, either in filming or in training? Give us a good little 5-minute story.
Well, before I give you the story, let me first say that, the term stunt pilot is a lot of times what kind of gravitates to what we do for a living. And when people hear the word stunt, they think of dangerous or crazy or wild, It's so far from that. Like, the normal flying I do just by myself in my own little airplane is probably more dangerous than the movie flying I do. Because what we do in the movie industry is so
thought out,
it's like regulated, so thought out. It's months of planning, weeks of prepping. A
little bit more of a controlled environment.
It's extremely controlled, and it all has to be FAA approved. Like, my job is making sure that I meet all of the FAA parameters, make sure we're not breaking any rules. So by the time we're doing these crazy stunts, if we're landing a helicopter on a train or flying under a bridge or whatever, it's been practiced and rehearsed so many times. You're not even worried. You're not thinking about it. I always say, if we're up there and we're scared of something, we've really screwed up. Like, we should stop. That's a knock it off moment. Like, hey, back to base. We got to go talk about this. This is not safe. My good friend Ferg, who was the naval aerial coordinator on the movie, who's just an incredible patriotic gentleman who served our country, but he was the guy in charge of the Top Gun Maverick from the naval side. He always said something in the briefing at the end, and he'd say, hey, if there's any doubt, there's no doubt. And that stuck with me. And that can be used anywhere in life. But if there's any doubt you're going to die or do something stupid, then don't do it. Then we shouldn't even be doing it. So to get back to what your question was, on Top Gun Maverick, we had to set the bar high, right? So we had to push the limits of creativity. We had to push the limits of ourselves, our bodies, physiological. We had to push the limits of the aircraft and what the camera gimbals would let us do. And once we got to that line that met the other line, which is, hey, you go past this line and now you're unsafe. But we needed to live right there. So I feel like on Top Gun Maverick, we pushed it right to where we needed to live to be able to make that extraordinary aerial photography and have everybody come home safe. And that's where we lived. And yeah, every single day we'd go out on set. We'd either pinch ourselves or go, holy crap, I can't believe we're doing this, or I can't believe we're here. But it was so controlled and it was so well thought out. There was never a moment where I was like, why are we doing this? This is ridiculous. It was more like, this is crazy, but it's amazing.
Did everyone on set, the actors, did they all get the flying bug? Are they all now in training?
It's a cool question.
Yeah.
Glenn Powell, who's a dear friend of mine, he actually got his pilot's license out of the movie. So when we started flight training, Paramount and Joe and Tom wanted to create a curriculum program that turned our actors into basically pilots. There's, the only reason they look, in my opinion, as good as they do, one, they're just extremely talented.
Yeah, right.
But also, they went through pilot training. And
you dunked them underwater, made them do all the safety training.
Military
for exiting.
made them do all that stuff. But the pilot training was fun because I got to put a curriculum together. My dad and I started them out in Cessna 172s. Glenn was logging time because my dad was a CFI, a flight instructor. And then we graduated him into my friend Chuck Coleman's aerobatic program. He has an extra 300. It's like an aerobatic airplane that, Red Bull would use or something.
Okay.
And they'd go out every day in those things after the Cessna, and they'd pull Gs, like 8 Gs every single day to build up their G tolerance, to make sure they wouldn't get sick. And then once Chuck was like, hey, they're great, they would graduate from there, and they'd go into my friend.
They're not thrown up anymore.
I know, they've reached a limit where they're ready to proceed, which was pretty hardcore. They'd go to Randy
So roller coasters must just be boring for you. They're just not the speed that you're used to.
Doesn't do it for us anymore. No.
Got it.
I never thought I was like a thrill seeker or an adrenaline junkie, but I think it's just I'm just born into it. It's just fun. Anyway, I digress. The actors then went to Randy Howell's program, which is an L-39, same airplane the Cinejet is, and they got to fly jets and do aerobatics, and that was where they graduated into the F-18s. So by the time they got into the F-18s, we're talking like seasoned veterans. They had their G tolerance, their inner ear was ready to do all this crazy stuff. They knew aviation. They could take off and land a Cessna. They were ready.
Is this 3 months?
Yeah.
6 months of training? Like, what are they? Okay.
About 3 months.
Okay.
Yep. And I mean, that's super expensive. You think of everything.
But if Paramount Studios is paying for me, I will do it every day.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if Tom Cruise is telling me to do it, I will
throw
definitely
up every day until we get it.
I will be there. And they just did an incredible job, and a huge testament to Tom. That was Tom was the driving force there of like, hey, and he knew, like, if anyone could know what acting takes while flying in an F-14 from like Top Gun, Tom's going to know. And he was adamant, like, no, they have to be pilots. They have to understand this before they get in there.
I will give you a paper crane hat if I can tag along sometime. You can take 2 hats, 3, give them to all your daughters. I will pay for my own fuel. Just don't, if I'm going to throw up, just don't tell anybody.
I have a little, it's a little super decathlon. It's like a little maneuverable aircraft, and I will absolutely take you. Nice. But there's no throwing up in my airplane. Yeah. If you do, you're cleaning it.
Nope. I won't do that. I'll bring a bag. I read, correct me if I'm wrong, that you shot some of this up by Whidbey Island.
We did.
Which is where I'm from.
Are you really?
Port Angeles. Just go Port
Why
Townsend
the heck
Ferry.
Did you move down here?
Because none of this we wouldn't be doing
There's no
this.
film industry up there.
So how did you get here? I got in my car and I came down here so I can meet you. What part of the movie was filmed up there, if I may ask? Because I know
of course you may.
You shot a couple different locations for the snow and probably.
We were all over the West Coast. So the final scene of the movie, final act, if you will, where they're in that rogue country, whatever it is, that's in the Pacific Northwest. And you know the mountain range that you're from there. It's the Cascade Mountain Range, which we see all the time. Like when we're in Seattle and you see Mount Rainier and you see all that cool stuff, you're like, wow, that's awesome. That's amazing. But when you fly through those things, it feels like you're not in the U.S. It feels like you should be in the Swiss Alps or something like that.
Yeah, Siberia almost is where I thought you were.
It's wild looking, and it was like perfect location.
Can I ask why there? Is that because of the sub base in Bremerton? Or something other reason, just for looks?
The main reason was we wanted to find the coolest terrain for that part of the movie. And that's like everything in the movie is, where can we find the best of this? Who cares where our support is? Who cares how much it's going to cost to travel there or whatever? Let's go find the best looking stuff and then put airplanes in there. Wow. And that was the best looking stuff we could find.
That's looked really good.
Yeah, because he said that, that was shot up there. And then what was shot in Georgia? Oh, that's Devotion.
Devotion.
That was Devotion, yeah. Another cool Navy movie.
I am listening. there was one other question I had after I was reading all your stuff.
Rude.
Keep chatting.
There's a scene in the movie that's actually South Lake Tahoe too. It's pretty fun. that runway that gets destroyed and everything.
Yeah, yeah.
It's South Lake Tahoe, just completely redressed.
My favorite shot though is where he doesn't stop and he takes off with Ed. Is it Ed Harris that's there, and the whole roof of that little
That was in
shack
Nevada.
blows off.
That's in No, that was
right
in
in the
China
beginning.
Lake. That's China Lake.
okay.
So that's in California.
Oh,
cool,
that shot
cool
was
story.
great.
It's amazing. It's cool, but I aged probably 5 years when I saw that happen in front of me because that wasn't supposed to happen.
It wasn't.
No, it wasn't supposed to happen at
So
all.
that wasn't one of the first AD planned shots.
No, not at all. I mean, so planned shot, and anytime we went below 100 feet AGL, typically the air boss working with Ferg would require that we brought in a Blue Angel because Blues fly all the time below 100, and they put in a special spring which gives them a lot of control in the F-18, like the feedback of how it feels, so they get really precise down below 100. I mean, they just do it every day. So our job, we brought in a Blue Angel. His name was Walleye, really great guy, and that cool Top Gun rule. Just digress really quick. Anytime we see an aircraft in the movie fly that's really not flyable in the U.S., like an F-14 or something else, or in this case a Dark Star you're talking about, the Top Gun rule, primary Top Gun rule, we can never film blank sky. Never film a plate for film people that know what that is. We can never just point the camera in the sky and then the CG artist put an airplane in there. Because the dynamics are wrong and the vapors are going to be wrong and the lights are wrong and the glints are wrong. And people like us kind of know. We go, I'm watching a cartoon that's not there. So the coolest thing ever is there's always something there and it's reskinned. And, they would, visual effects, coordinators and stuff would show something to me that I shot. And they'd be like, Kev, what do you think of this F-14? And I'd look at it and go, man, it's there. Like I remember shooting that. I don't remember being an F-14, but I believe it. And if we believe it, that's how good it looks.
Yeah.
Because there's a real airplane there. So to answer your question, we rehearsed that take 12 times throughout the day, got walleye lower. I think it was like 40 feet all said and done. That was a really cool set that construction built. That guard gate and that shack and everything was really awesome. And we wanted to dust him. Like he was going to get jet washed and just dusted because, Maverick's taking off and flying right over him.
Right.
And
It's a flyby.
It's a flyby. It's takeoff. So
Got to buzz the tower, Goose.
we get it perfect. Now we're waiting for light, and the ADs call in Ed Harris. And Ed walks out to set, and Ferg and I give him a brief and just go, hey, here's what you're going to feel. We had a video on our phone from us getting dusted all day, and you're going to get dusted, and you feel some wind. He had ear protection that we couldn't see, and he's just perfect, steely-eyed, grizzled Ed Harris that we'd all want him to be, right? He's probably one of my favorite actors. Just awesome. But meanwhile, mind you, playing baseball with the PAs, like waiting in between takes, like that's how cool he is.
Right.
So the take comes, we call in Walleye. Ferg's calling him in at this point, and I'm standing behind Ferg, and we're standing behind camera, and we're watching him come. Everything looks perfect. This is what it's looked like 12 times before, and I don't know what changed. Well, I got excited or maybe put a little extra pop in there, but we got blasted. So much so that set ripped apart. It blew over the gate, it blew over our poles, but the roof literally ripped off, rotated like 20 degrees and slammed back down. And I remember Ferg and I are behind the camera and we were like, oh my God, like.
Is that the shot they used?
And the director's like, yeah, that's in the movie.
Absolutely.
That's in the movie. And we're just like, unplanned realness. And, Ferg's like, Walleye, we got it. You can land now. It's all good. Just like, no need to come back. We're good.
Cut, check the gate. Oh my gosh. It was
And
great.
what I do love about Ed Harris is that thing went over his head and blasted him. Like he should have fallen over.
He didn't move.
And if you watch closely in slow motion, like he has to take a little step back, but he doesn't budge. Like perfect face, gets blasted, and it just in true Ed Harris fashion, a badass.
Yeah.
Yes.
Pretty awesome.
Was that it?
All right, we'll cut that into the into this podcast. Actually, just
That's
that little
awesome.
clip so that everybody can see it.
That's awesome.
And you were there to help do that.
Now, did you have booked Devotion before Top Gun wrapped? Because were
that's a
you
good
already
question.
already prepping?
I think we got the call for
Yeah.
it. And the Black Label media team. Black Label is a fantastic production company. I mean, they've done the Sicarios.
Yeah,
and,
they're great. Yeah.
And Glenn Powell signed on to it pretty early and was like, "There's aviation in this movie."
He's
Like,
also helping produce, correct?
yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
he found the story, I think.
Well, I think I don't know the whole the backstory on who produced or everything, but I know Glenn was attached to it, in the lead in it, and one of the leads. And they're like, "Hey, aviation's involved. Like, got to bring in Kev. Like, Kev's done a phenomenal job on Top Gun." So we got the call for it, and I remember Black Label's like, "Hey, we love what you did. We want everything real like that. Like, I think the world is taking to real practical flying.
Right.
I think they love seeing real airplanes on camera and stunts. And let's make that for Devotion."
But now you're using 50 style
Yeah, which
airplanes,
is so cool.
it's like different than Top Gun, but
Way different.
the cameras that you've created and developed and the gimbals you were talking about. Now you can use just an
Right,
older
and I'm a-
older aircraft.
And I'm assuming you can't take the planes with the gimbals to their max speed. It'd probably rip the gimbal off, right?
Yeah, it was restricted to 350 knots in the L39 in 3Gs, which is kind of a bummer because the F-18s are a lot faster, could pull a lot more Gs. But here's
Didn't
what
you say that was a good thing because they could just blast past you?
you got it. So there's times where I want to live in formation. That's a story point, right? When we're looking at our actors in the training sequence and they're having, communications back and forth. There's plenty of shots in the movie where the audience is in formation with the F-18s. It's fine. We're doing 300 knots or 280 knots or something. But then there's plenty of shots in the movie where those things rip by. What happens when you get this differential of speed? It's really cool. You use compression, which you guys know about. So the foreground's moving, the background's moving, and you're tied into what you're looking at, the focal point, and it makes the shot more dynamic. And it makes things look like they're going a million miles an hour. And that's really fun. That's cool.
Yeah.
So going slower is not necessarily a bad thing. We would use these, we'd call them blow-bys or flybys. We would set up the right background and the right timing. I get the L39 ripping through a canyon, and I'd have an F-18 rip past me, and the shot's awesome.
This guy's geeking out right
I
now.
am.
I like.
I like.
By the way, he's gonna keep hold you to.
I'm serious on
Yeah.
the fly. Well,
I'm
the thing
serious
is,
too.
a lot of my friends, they either worked at Boeing or they would do private taxi planes just from like.
That's that little airplane manufacturer. They make like
Small.
Yeah. But they would fly cargo stuff from like Port Angeles that has a little private airport out
Yeah.
to SeaTac. And friends were pilots, and I have a few friends even now that fly. And it's like I feel like all the celebrities or the people that make it in their 40s and 50s, they're all like, I think I'm going to start flying a plane now. Or it's riding horses, one or the other. And
it's a bucket list thing though. I mean, think
it's
of
a money thing. You have to have money to sail
there
and to fly
is that. It does
Yeah.
cost a lot of money.
and own horses.
Oh, that yeah. Do you have to oversee when they're the planes that were set up to record the faces of the pilots?
The only thing I played in that, I played a small role where we took Claudio Miranda's team, led by Dan Ming, who's just like a brain trust when it comes to cameras. We went up to Randy Howell's place, the Patriot Jet team, and we tested how we were going to make that look. So we used an L39 and we built cameras looking aft, 4 looking aft, 2 looking forward, and we put them into the L39, which is a different airplane altogether than the F-18, but it was our proof of concept, or in a way Dan Ming's proof of concept, for how it would work in the F-18. So, and I got to take those out and rip them around and fly around, and I got to fly Claudio Miranda in the back of the L-39 and try to make him sick. I did not succeed. Dan Ming went up. So they all got to fly.
They probably did. They waited till they landed. We're like,
Yeah,
good
yeah.
job. Walked around the
I'm
corner.
done. Yep. I'll leave that to somebody else.
While in pre-production, did you fly Tom and show him the camera? Like, was that?
I'm trying to think. I don't think I flew Tom before. Well, Tom before Top Gun Maverick. I mean, Tom's already a
Right.
licensed and experienced aviator. I do remember I went out and flew McHugh, Mission Impossible director.
Yep.
He flew with me,
Yep.
and then I think Tom flew in another L-39, and we did some dogfighting. And that was a little bit of like our proof of concept of like, here's how fun the L-39 is, and here's some really cool angles, and we can do all these things. And everybody, smiled, laughed, and high-fived, and it's like, yes. So that was fun.
How do one last nerd question, and then I'll be quiet, and I'll let you finish the last 10. How do you get the missiles that shoot out like that? Are those duds? Are those models? Are those CG?
So that's the CG. So that's the formula for Top Gun Maverick is all real flying and real assets in lens that are just slightly enhanced by CG. So some of the flares are real. All of the missiles are CG, of course. We didn't shoot any F-18s down. But they look amazing. I'll tell you a really cool story about that. So one of my favorite sequences in the movie happens to be evading missiles towards the end of the movie. I don't want to say too much, but if you've seen the movie, it's a really profound sequence.
Yeah.
And I find if you look left and right in the theater, you can literally find people edging to the edge of their seat there and like holding their hands. And I do the same thing. It's just like it's a really dynamic and energetic sequence. The gentleman that flew that for me, there's 3 of them that I remember. It was Griff, Waldo, and Fisty. And those were the guys at the time when we shot that. And a lot of that was moments of opportunity and creative freedom. We had the boards and we had pre-visualizations of what we needed to go get for the story points for Joe Kaczynski. But when you're out there and you find cool terrain and you get good ideas, you say, hey, let's take this shot we were going to do. And we did it over there. It was really cool, but let's go put it over here. And then let's try it this way. So that sequence in the movie was really fun for me because it was literally me in the helicopter and I was feet away from ice and snow and rocks and trees trying to get this cool foreground element, like just swiping through the camera. And it was long lensing onto those guys in between the rocks and snow and me calling, hey, there's a missile coming at your tail, ready, afterburner, and left turn, pull, and right turn, pull. And those guys are out of energy, and you can hear them breathing over the radio as if they're evading real missiles. I mean, they were worn out. But the footage that came from that is just this wild F-18s full of vapor and afterburners. And I think that's what sequence is so fun. Is it was very natural, and it was those guys were exhausted.
Were you part of that canyon shot where you had to go up and then you guys became inverted?
Of course,
and then came back.
It's one of my favorite.
Okay.
So I got to do some following of that, and following the guys down in the jets. That shot, the famous shot in the movie, is actually from the helicopter. I was flying the helicopter there, and I think David Knoll and Michael Fitzmaurice were shooting it. But those are real naval pilots, naval aviators, with our actors on board, literally pulling up the side of a mountain, inverting and pulling down. And we called it goalposts. Like, we found this really cool ridge line that literally was a bowl on the other side they were diving into. It was wild. And we just rehearsed and practiced enough where they were literally splitting those goalposts and pulling down the other side. And every time I see that in the theater, you can hear the crowd. Everybody's just like, whoa, like, we don't need to overcomplicate. Like, we want this really nice shot of something absolutely wild happening on camera. Yeah. So there's times where you want to put foreground in there and movement and trees and birds or whatever in the foreground, but there's also times where there's just something stunning happening. And
you don't need to do anything to it. It looked great as it is.
There's another shot in the movie, and it's in the trailer, so it's not a spoiler, where the F-18s come around a corner over the lake, and they just have these huge cones of vapor around them. That was Griff, and that was Griff basically out of gas, like saying, hey, Kev, what else do you need? I'm like, we kind of got everything on our list today. We're looking good. And he's like, well, I got a little bit of gas. And I was like, all right, dude, like, here's this beautiful lake. Here's this. I was like, send it. I'll get out of your way when you come around the corner. Like, so natural is that. I mean, that's that level of trust you get when you fly with these guys for so long. They're like, all right, my trust, Kev, I'll do that.
Where was the director and all that? Like, is he in a helicopter?
No,
shooting?
Joe Kosinski's. There's so many different pods. He's probably working on something else, or he's back at base.
Got it.
And we're out basically getting shots from him. And Griff sent it. Like, he came around that corner, and that thing lit up. And I was basically doing everything I could to get out of the way.
And when you get those little tails that come off of fuel, is that from dumping fuel or hitting a speed? Or...
I love that you brought that up. I think it's accidental, and the naval aviators can comment.
Come on,
and
I
tell
know
me.
you guys know how to do that.
So most of the time when we see the vertical stabilizers on the F-18 venting, looks like vapor. I think that's fuel. And it has something to do on certain jets with when they negatively load them and positively load them, it'll leak a little fuel out of those things. We never activated a fuel dump on this movie as far as I know. But there were some jets in particular that would vent more than others when they would fly them that way. And it always looks cool. It just more dynamic.
Awesome.
It just looks
and
badass.
How do you get that? It looks like a force field that kind of appears for a minute before the supersonic or something.
Well, that's what happened. That's what happened to Griff. I mean, it happens to do with temperature, dew point, atmospheric conditions. I mean, he's just prior to going through Mach 1, right? I mean, he's right at the limit.
Looks so cool.
It's awesome.
You hit 1.21 gigawatts and 88 miles per hour.
Absolutely.
And you are going to go full send.
What are you excited to work on now? Like, what do you got coming up?
There's a lot of projects right now. We have some big movies we're going to do next year, working on some exciting smaller projects now. It's always something different. One that's near and dear to the heart. Another one with Glenn Powell is actually with the Blue Angels. We're doing their 75th anniversary. I was hired by the production company that's doing it.
It's more like a documentary style?
It's a documentary.
Okay.
However, this documentary is going to play in IMAX theaters.
Wow.
So it's going to be cinematic quality. The Blue Angels are, some of the best aviators we've ever seen in the world. The level of precision that they just operate on, from literally brief to debrief, is intense. It's crazy. And there's tons of cool footage, but we're gonna shoot it cinematically and let the world kind of see them in a way they haven't seen before.
So was Maverick kind of like the breeding ground for the tech you're going to put into this documentary?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, so many lessons learned and cool technology that popped out of that we can apply. And there's always, you got to kind of try to raise the bar every single time.
Yeah.
Wow. Man. Can I friend you on Facebook? Will you
I'll accept you. Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate that. Netflix, right now, The Gray Man, Ryan Gosling out. Devotion comes out November.
Thanksgiving.
Think right. Creed 3 also possibly same time, and then you're looking at down the road. Rebel Moon, that'll be with
Zack Snyder. That's huge.
Yeah. And Heart of Stone, which is more Netflix. Gal Gadot, who we also had Ross and Thurber on a few weeks ago.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Who works with them as well. So it's a small world. The more teams of people I meet, I'm like, y'all know the people that were just here.
Yeah.
That's
So-
cool. I feel totally inadequate compared to them, but yeah, it's
Well, we
awesome.
pitched you pretty hard to him, so I think he's going to give you a line and maybe even a close up in the movie.
Sweet, I'll be ready.
Do you do acting, actual seeing your face as you and saying lines?
So
That was actually my
unprofessionally,
next question was like, do you want to act more?
The first time that I'm going to participate in something like that is actually 2 weeks from now on a little project. I think
Well, this is practice for you.
this is great.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is helping. It's something I never saw myself doing, but growing up in the film business, you kind of get this passion just for filmmaking of all different aspects of it. My true passion is aviation. But for me, this works out well because it's an aviation little proof of concept. I probably can't talk about it anymore, or else
yeah,
they'll
it's okay.
fire me and I'll never get to
Yeah.
work on it. But it'll be fun. It's something I've never done before, and I got some really good buddies that are actors that are kind of giving me some tips and some stuff. I'm not really. I don't think I'm conditioned or practiced for that. But at this point, I'm just gonna have fun with it. I think it's a very cool role, and it's something I'll be proud to be a part of. But my past acting is all ridiculous one-liners. Like I'm flying a helicopter, like we're 1 minute out or something like that. It's just those,
It's all right.
Nothing wrong with that.
Hey, you
Yeah.
start somewhere.
Yeah.
I love it's fun. It's great. And my kids think that's, I mean, the kids could care less how much I fly a camera. It's like, Dad, when are you going to be on camera? Like when you get like the stupidest little line or whatever I do, they're like, you're so cool for that. So,
Because when they hit pause on Maverick and they go, that's my dad in that plane this big out there, that's not the same as
Nah,
getting to see you.
I get it.
Dad, can you get on iCarly? Are you an animated voice somewhere?
Yeah, that's great.
Now, is it your own company, or you still just Kevin LaRosa? They just hire you as an aerial
I
stunt
am
coordinator?
through and through. I'm just Kevin LaRosa.
Yeah.
I'm an aerial coordinator, motion picture pilot, hired independently,
Got
and I
it.
become an employee for the production studios. I do have a preferred team I work with. I mean, just like any industry,
Yeah.
you find people that make you look good. I like
You
to
can
say
trust,
I
that are
find
safe, yeah.
people that are smarter than me that make our team what it is today. So yeah, in any given movie, when I get hired to do something, it's all about surrounding yourself with that amazing team that's going to make you look good and also give the customer something amazing. But there are companies that I'm partnered with. One of them's Helen at Aviation out of Van Nuys. They've been around for a number of years. We run a lot of production equipment through there.
Did they help you develop the gimbal?
They
Is that-
they helped me develop the Cinejet, but they also used to own part of a company called Shotover. Shotover's a great company that I work with all the time that makes that gimbal. And then obviously Patriot Jet Team, my friend Randy Howell, that's another partnership with Cinejet that I love, and that's given me so many opportunities. And again, my friend Jonathan Spano, who owns the Phenom 300. So the industry is about relationships.
Yeah.
It's about being a good partner, a good business person, good ethics, because it's such a small industry.
Mhm.
Like you don't have room to really screw that up.
Well, can you any plugs, handles? How do people find you, follow you, worship
Sure.
you, send
Yeah.
you? I don't know.
Definitely not that. No, I mean, it's Instagram is where I try to put a lot of behind the scenes. Been having some fun with that. So that's just K2 LaRosa, letter K number 2, then LaRosa's LaRosa. That's cool.
I'll put that up
So-
right now.
That'd be cool. Yeah, I'm on Facebook and TikTok, and websites www.k2larosa.com. I try to throw some fun stuff up there. So that's basically who I am. At the end of the day, I just love aviation. I love being on film sets. I got 3 beautiful little girls.
I was gonna say, it sounds like you're an awesome dad, and I'm excited for them. Who knows? They might be the next Phoenix
oh, man,
in a
I'd lo-
movie.
I would,
Top Gun
I
3.
would absolutely love that. That'd be so cool.
Well, we really appreciate you coming on the show. We're about an hour, so we'll probably keep it to that for now. But once you fly a few more things with Tom or whoever, we'll have you right back on.
Yeah.
It would be an honor. And we're going flying.
Holding
you
I'm
to it.
taking you up on that.
By the way, if and when you get sick, I'm going to remind you that my 8 and 10-year-old daughters
Why were you so
Do not.
positive about
don't get sick
Yeah.
when I do aerobatics.
Great. So now I have the
So you're going to have
pressure.
to live up to that.
It's going to be an embarrassing day, but I deserve it. Okay.
Can you put the cameras in your plane so we could all watch this?
Yeah, and when I come back on
Yeah,
the podcast,
yeah.
I want to put the footage up
Yeah,
of him. Yeah,
yeah.
100%.
My,
like-
my face looks like yeah. One eye. I probably have a seizure or a stroke at the same time. All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in again to another episode of So How'd You Get Here? I think that's all for today, unless you have anything you'd like to add.
Listen, man, I appreciate you coming on.
We do.
We
appreciate
learned so much. Thank you.
It was a pleasure. It was
Pleasure.
awesome.
All right, everybody. That's it for this week, and we will see you next time.